At Christmas dinner my mom said, "You've never contributed anything." So I smiled and stopped the wire transfers that have been funding her successful business since it opened in 2015. Before we move forward, please show some love by subscribing and share your location in the comments. I love seeing where our family is watching from. The crystal chandelier above my mother's dining table caught the light like 1,000 tiny daggers. I watched them flicker as Mama raised her wine glass, her perfectly manicured nails gleaming red against the stem. "To family," she announced, her voice carrying that practiced warmth she reserved for audiences. My sister Elvira smirked from across the table, already 3 glasses deep. I was 28 years old and I'd spent every Christmas since college sitting at this table, playing the role of invisible daughter. While Elvira got praised for showing up hungover in last year's dress, I got silence. That was fine. Silence meant they didn't know. "Simone, baby, pass the rolls," Mama said, barely glancing my way. I was always baby, never honey or sweetheart. Those were reserved for Elvira, the golden child who'd dropped out of 3 colleges and still lived in Mama's guest house rent-free. My phone buzzed. Another automatic transfer confirmation. $4,200 sent to Mitchell's Boutique LLC. That made $50,400 this year alone. 9 years of monthly transfers, all routed through my business account to look like vendor payments. Nobody questioned it. Nobody even knew. "This ham is divine, Mama," my Aunt Carolyn gushed. "That boutique must be doing so well for you to afford all this." Mama beamed. "Oh, business has been blessed. Real blessed." She cut her eyes at me briefly, something cold flickering there before she turned back to Carolyn. "Some of us know how to build something from nothing." The knife in my hand felt suddenly heavy. 9 years. I'd been funding from nothing for 9 years. Mitchell's Boutique opened in March 2015, right after I landed my first major contract as a software consultant. Mama called me crying at 2 a.m. talking about her dream, her purpose, her chance to finally be somebody. "Your daddy never believed in me," she'd sobbed. "But you're different, baby. You understand." I was 20 years old and desperate to be different from my father, who'd walked out when I was 12, leaving Mama with nothing but a mortgage and an attitude. So when she asked for $20,000 to cover her lease deposit and initial inventory, I liquidated my small savings and took out a loan. "Just until I get on my feet," she'd promised. 6 months, tops. That was over 3,000 days ago. The loan became monthly transfers of $3,000 to $5,000. Some months more when there were emergencies, broken display cases, inventory issues, a burst pipe that somehow cost $8,000 to fix even though her landlord was responsible for building maintenance. The boutique's Instagram showed a thriving business. Packed racks of colorful dresses, smiling customers, Mama posing in designer outfits she claimed were inventory testing. She had 42,000 followers. Local magazines featured her as a successful Black woman entrepreneur. Last year she gave a TEDx talk titled, "Building Your Empire from Scratch." From scratch. The words had made my teeth hurt. "Pass the greens, Simone," Elvira demanded, snapping her fingers at me like I was staff. She was wearing a new Gucci belt. Retail, $1,200. Her job at the call center paid $14 an hour when she bothered showing up. I passed the greens and said nothing. My boyfriend Jeffrey squeezed my hand under the table. He was the only one who knew everything, who'd held me while I cried over my laptop at midnight, reviewing my accounts, trying to figure out how to keep funding Mama's dream while saving for our own future. "So Simone," Uncle Jerome said, his voice carrying that edge of judgment he always had with me, "you still doing that computer stuff? When you gonna settle down, get a real career?" Computer stuff. I'd built 3 companies' entire IT infrastructure this year. My consulting firm had 12 employees now. But to them I was still the quiet one who played with computers. "She's doing fine," Jeffrey said firmly. He was always defending me at these dinners. It was exhausting for both of us. Mama laughed that tinkling laugh she'd perfected. "Oh, Jerome, leave the girl alone. At least she's employed." She cut her eyes at Elvira briefly but then softened. "My boutique's expanding next month. Taking over the space next door. I'm thinking about hiring actually." "Elvira, you interested in retail management?" Elvira brightened. "For real, Mama. How much it pay?" "We'll discuss it. Good money though. I'm doing real good." Mama touched her new diamond tennis bracelet. "That bracelet cost more than I paid myself in a month, trying to keep my business liquid enough to keep funding hers." My Aunt Carolyn leaned forward. "Gloria, you are such an inspiration. Building that business all by yourself after everything you've been through." All by herself. The words hung in the air like smoke. "You know what I admire most about you, Gloria?" Carolyn continued, warming to her subject. "You never asked nobody for nothing. Just pulled yourself up and made it happen." Mama nodded solemnly, accepting the praise like communion. "That's right. I learned early that you can't depend on people. You gotta depend on yourself." She looked directly at me then, her eyes cold despite her smile. "Some people never learn that lesson." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Jeffrey's hand tightened on mine under the table, a warning, an anchor. "What's that supposed to mean?" The words came out before I could stop them. Mama's smile never wavered. "Nothing, baby. Just general philosophy." She took a delicate bite of ham. "Speaking of which, I've been thinking about writing a book. From struggle to success or something like that. Elvira's been helping me outline my journey." Elvira preened. "Mama's story is really inspiring. About overcoming obstacles and building something when everyone doubted her." "Who doubted her?" I asked quietly. The table went silent. Mama set down her fork with a soft click. "Excuse me. I asked who doubted you." My voice was steady but my heart was hammering. 9 years of silence cracking. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've had nothing but support." Uncle Jerome cleared his throat. "Now, Simone, don't start." "Don't start what?" I turned to him. "Telling the truth? Mama's sitting here talking about doing everything alone, but what?" Mama's voice cut like a blade. "But what, Simone?" Jeffrey whispered, "Baby, not now." But it was now. It was finally now. "I've been supporting the boutique since day one," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "Every single month. For 9 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Aunt Carolyn's fork clattered against her plate. Uncle Jerome's mouth opened, then closed. Elvira stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Mama recovered first, laughing. "Supporting? Baby, you gave me a little loan years ago. I paid that back." "You never paid back anything." I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. "I have every transfer. Every single one. March 2015 to now. Over $450,000. "You're lying." Elvira's voice was sharp. "Am I?" I turned my screen toward her. December 2024, $4,200. November, $3,800. October, $5,100 because of that emergency renovation. That was really just new fixtures to impress that magazine doing a feature. Mama's face had gone rigid. "Those were investments. Business partnerships." "Partnerships?" I laughed, and it sounded broken even to my own ears. "I don't own any part of Mitchell's boutique. My name isn't on anything." I checked. "I'm not even listed as a creditor." Jeffrey put his arm around me, solid and warm. I told him I wasn't going to do this tonight, that I was just going to smile through dinner like always. But Mama's words, "You can't depend on people," after 9 years of depending entirely on me, had cracked something fundamental. "Why are you doing this?" Mama's voice was ice. "On Christmas? Are you trying to ruin everything?" "I'm not ruining anything. I'm just stating facts." "Facts." She stood up, her chair scraping harshly. "The fact is, you've never contributed anything to this family." The words hit like a physical blow. Never contributed anything. 9 years. $450,000. Hundreds of late nights. Skipped vacations. A delayed engagement because I couldn't afford a wedding while funding her dream. Never contributed, I repeated, my voice hollow. "That's right." Mama's face was twisted with something ugly now, the mask completely gone. "You sit there with your laptop and your little boyfriend acting like you're better than us. You think throwing money around makes you important." "Mama." Even Elvira looked shocked. "No, let her hear it." Mama pointed at me, her hand shaking. "You know what your problem is, Simone? You're just like your father. Calculating. Everything's a transaction with you. You probably kept receipts thinking you could hold it over me someday." "I kept receipts because they're business expenses on my taxes," I said quietly. "I've been reporting them as vendor payments to keep your boutique looking legitimate." Uncle Jerome made a choking sound. "Gloria, is this true?" "Stay out of this, Jerome." Mama's eyes never left mine. "This is between me and my ungrateful daughter who apparently thinks she bought me." "I never thought that," I whispered. "I just wanted to help you. I wanted you to finally see me." "See you?" Mama laughed, cruel and sharp. "Baby, I see you just fine. I see somebody who uses money to feel superior. Well, congratulations. You proved you got a little bit of cash. Now what? You want a medal?" Jeffrey stood up. "That's enough. We're leaving." "No." I stood too, but I wasn't running. "Not anymore. I want to know something first, Mama. When exactly were you planning to tell people the truth?" "What truth?" Mama demanded, but her eyes flickered with something that might have been fear. "That Mitchell's boutique has never made a profit. Not 1 month in 9 years. I'd pulled the business license records last week, unable to sleep, needing to know what I'd really been funding. You report less than $30,000 in annual revenue. Your rent alone is $42,000 a year." Aunt Carolyn gasped. "Gloria." "My accountant handles all that," Mama said quickly. "Those numbers are wrong. They're public record." I pulled up the county website on my phone. Mitchell's Boutique LC. Filed annually. Last year you reported $26,000 in gross revenue. The year before $19,000. Want me to keep going? You investigated me? Mama's voice rose. You spied on your own mother? I just looked at public information that any of your customers or business partners could access. My voice was steady now, adrenaline burning through the hurt. Information that shows your empire is completely funded by someone you just said never contributed anything. Elvira was scrolling through her phone frantically. Oh my God, she's right. It's all here. Mama, how are you even staying open? Through me, I said simply. $4,000 to $5,000 every month, sometimes more, categorized as payments to a vendor so it looks like legitimate business operation expenses. I even helped you set up the accounting to make it look good. Uncle Jerome was staring at Mama like he'd never seen her before. Gloria, you told us the boutique was thriving. You said you were making 6 figures. I am successful. Mama's voice cracked. My Instagram, the features, the customers are all real, I interrupted. But they're not paying customers. Or not enough of them. The boutique is beautiful. Your brand is strong. But the business model doesn't work. Then fix it. Mama slammed her hand on the table, making the crystal shake. You're supposed to be so smart. Fix it instead of embarrassing me. I tried. The words came out exhausted. For 9 years I've been sending you reports, suggestions, business plans. You never read any of them. You just kept posting on Instagram and buying inventory we both knew wouldn't sell. How would you know what sells? Mama's voice dripped with contempt. You sit behind a computer all day. You don't know about fashion, about style, about connecting with real people. You're right. I don't. I felt something shift inside me, settling into place like a key in a lock. Which is why I should have stopped trying to save a business I don't understand, run by someone who doesn't want my help, just my money. The silence stretched. Jeffrey's hand found mine again. So what now? Elvira asked quietly. She looked younger, suddenly scared. You gonna tell everyone? Ruin Mama's reputation? I'm not going to tell anyone anything. I looked at Mama, really looked at her, and saw a stranger wearing my mother's face. You're going to tell them yourself. Or not. That's your choice. My choice. Mama laughed bitterly. You're the one who brought this up, who threw it in my face on Christmas. You're the one who said I never contributed anything. My voice broke on the last word. After everything. After I've given you almost $500,000. After I've worked 80-hour weeks to keep both our businesses running. After I've lied to banks, to Jeffrey's family about why we can't afford a house yet, to my own employees about why I can't give them bigger raises. You said I never contributed. Mama's face was red now, splotchy with anger or shame. I couldn't tell which. What do you want me to say, Simone? Thank you? Fine. Thank you for the money. They're happy. No. The word came out flat. I want you to acknowledge reality. Just once. Tell everyone here the truth about Mitchell's boutique. This is blackmail, Mama hissed. This is honesty. I stood taller. Something this family apparently doesn't value. Uncle Jerome cleared his throat. Maybe we should all calm down. Don't. I cut him off. Don't do that thing where we all pretend everything's fine and sweep it under the rug. I'm done pretending. Jeffrey stood beside me, solid and unwavering. We're leaving now. Wait. Elvira's voice stopped us. She was looking at her phone, her face pale. Mama, there's comments on your last Instagram post. People asking about the county business filings. Someone linked to them. Mama snatched the phone. Her face went white, then red, then white again. Who did this? Simone, did you? I haven't touched your Instagram. But I watched as she scrolled, as the blood drained from her face. Public records were public. Anyone could have found them. Maybe one of her 42,000 followers had gotten curious. This is a disaster, Mama whispered. My reputation, my brand. Maybe you should have thought about that before lying about your success, I said quietly. Or before publicly humiliating the person who made it all possible. Aunt Carolyn was reading over Mama's shoulder, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something that looked like disgust. Gloria, is all of this true? Have you been faking this whole time? I haven't been faking. The boutique is real, the customers are real. But the success isn't, Carolyn said flatly. I picked up my purse, Jeffrey's hand warm on my back. I'm going to make this simple, Mama. As of tonight, the transfers stop. All of them. Mitchell's boutique is now entirely yours to manage however you see fit. You can't do that. Mama's voice pitched high. I have overhead, inventory orders, the lease. You'll figure it out. You're a successful entrepreneur, remember? Built everything from nothing. I felt surprisingly calm, like I'd been holding my breath for 9 years and finally exhaled. I'm sure you'll be fine. Simone, baby, please. Mama's voice changed, softened, became the mother voice I remembered from childhood. Don't do this. We're family. Family. I tested the word. Is that what we are? Because family doesn't tell you that you've never contributed anything. Family doesn't use you as a personal ATM and then act like you're the problem. Elvira stood up suddenly. Okay, fine. Mama was wrong to say that. But you're really gonna just cut her off on Christmas? What kind of person does that? The kind who's been funding someone else's vanity project for 9 years while being treated like I'm invisible. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. When's the last time you asked me how I was doing, Elvira? Not my business, not my money, me. She opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing came out. That's what I thought. I turned to Mama one last time. I loved you enough to sacrifice my own dreams for yours. But love can't be one way forever. Eventually it just becomes servitude. Don't you quote therapy speak at me, Mama snapped, her softer voice gone. This is about you being vindictive. Hateful. No, Jeffrey said firmly. This is about boundaries. Something this family clearly doesn't understand. We made it to the door before Mama's voice stopped us one more time. If you walk out that door, don't come back. You hear me? You cut me off, I cut you off. That's how this works. I turned back slowly. She was standing in the doorway of the dining room, backlit by that crystal chandelier, looking like a stranger. Mama, I've been cut off from you emotionally for years. I was just too busy being useful to notice. Ungrateful. He spat the word like poison. After everything I did for you, raising you alone after your daddy left. You didn't raise me alone. Aunt Carolyn helped. Uncle Jerome helped. And I've been helping since I was 20 years old. The difference is I never held it over your head. I felt tears threatening but pushed them back. I just wanted you to be proud of me. To see me. But all you ever saw was what I could give you. That's not fair, Elvira interjected. Mama loves you. Does she? I looked at my sister. Can you name one thing about my life that Mama knows? What my company does? Where Jeffrey proposed? Why we've been engaged for 3 years without setting a date? Elvira's silence was answer enough. Aunt Carolyn stood up slowly. Gloria, maybe you should apologize. Apologize? Mama's laugh was harsh. For what? For accepting help from my daughter? For building a business? For trying to make something of myself? For pretending you did it alone, Carolyn said quietly. For taking credit for someone else's sacrifice. You don't understand, Mama started, but Carolyn cut her off. I understand perfectly. And I'm ashamed of you. The words hit Mama like a slap. She staggered back slightly, her face crumpling before hardening again. Get out. All of you. Get out of my house. Jeffrey drove while I sat in the passenger seat watching the Christmas lights blur past. My phone was already buzzing with texts. Elvira, you really hurt Mama. Hope you're happy. Uncle Jerome, let's talk when everyone calms down. Aunt Carolyn, I'm proud of you, baby. Call me tomorrow. I turned the phone off and stared out the window. We'd been driving for 20 minutes before I realized Jeffrey wasn't heading to our apartment. Where are we going? Your storage unit. He glanced at me, his dark eyes soft with understanding. You're going to need those business records. All of them. He was right. 9 years of transfers, emails, text messages where Mama promised to pay me back soon. Accounting records I'd helped her fabricate to make Mitchell's boutique look legitimate to landlords and vendors. Everything. The storage unit was cold and smelled like cardboard. I'd been keeping hard copies of everything, some instinct telling me I might need proof someday. Now that day had arrived. You okay? Jeffrey asked as I pulled out box after box. I don't know. I sat down on a box labeled 2018 to 2019. I just blew up my family on Christmas. Your family blew themselves up. He sat beside me, his shoulder warm against mine. You just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. My phone buzzed again despite being off. Someone was calling repeatedly until it forced itself back on. I looked at the screen. Mama. 15 missed calls in 20 minutes. I answered. What? The bank called. Her voice was shaking. The automatic transfers. They're showing as cancelled. All of them. Future ones included. I cancelled them from my car while Jeffrey was driving. I'd done it on my phone banking app, surprisingly easy after 9 years of setting them up. Simone, you can't. I have bills. So do I. And for the first time in 9 years, I'm going to be able to pay them without choosing between your dream and my reality. 3 months later, I sat in my newly expanded office, overlooking the city. Jeffrey was at his desk across from mine. We'd finally merged our consulting firms, something we'd been planning for years but couldn't afford while I was funding Mitchell's boutique. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Local boutique owner Gloria Mitchell faces creditors in wake of financial revelations. The article detailed everything. The public records I'd mentioned, the Instagram comments that had snowballed, the customers who'd felt deceived. Mitchell's boutique had closed 3 weeks ago. Mama had filed for bankruptcy. I felt something twist in my chest, but it wasn't guilt. It was grief for something that had never really existed, the relationship I'd thought we had. You okay? Jeffrey asked, reading over my shoulder. Yeah. And I was. My business was thriving. We'd bought a house. We'd set a wedding date. For the first time since I was 20 years old, my bank account was actually growing instead of being siphoned away. Aunt Carolyn called that evening. Your mama's asking about you. What's she saying? That she's sorry. That she didn't realize how much she was taking. That she wants to talk. I was quiet for a long moment. What do you think? I think, Carolyn said carefully, that people don't change until they have to. And your mama's finally having to face reality. Whether that makes her better or just bitter, only time will tell. And if I don't want to wait to find out, then you don't. Baby, you don't owe anyone access to your life, not even your mama. Especially not someone who treated your generosity like an obligation. That night I wrote Mama an email. Not a long one. Just 4 sentences. I hope you find real success on your own terms. I hope you learn that love isn't transactional. I'm building my own life now, and it doesn't include funding yours. Maybe someday we can have an honest relationship, but that day isn't today. I hit send and closed my laptop. Jeffrey wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I leaned into him, feeling lighter than I had in 9 years. Sometimes the greatest contribution you can make is knowing when to stop contributing. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. And sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to stop trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Elvira. Mama's crying. I hope you're satisfied. I typed back. I'm not satisfied. I'm finally free. There's a difference. Then I turned off my phone and walked into my future. The one I'd been delaying for almost a decade. The one that was finally, completely mine.